I ain't the kind to wear a tie, button up from 9 to 5. I tried that life but said goodbye. I'm not always polite, but I get the job done. Who says the world can never be fun? I'm simply unprofessional. Simply unprofessional.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Simply Unprofessional. I'm your host, Webby. Joining me tonight, we got Rob.
Hey guys, I'm Rob.
Rob, it's just me and you this week.
It is.
Mainly because Devin has not watched the entire show of what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, it's usually the other way around.
Yeah, no joke. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about the... God, what station was it?
Oh, I don't know.
Hold on.
Hulu.
Well, that's where I watched it. NBC. It aired on NBC. We're going to be talking about NBC's Blind Spot, which, if you haven't watched it, you should. It's on Hulu. And you can watch all of the seasons on Hulu now because the series is completed. If you have not watched Blind Spot yet and you don't want spoilers for it, stop listening to this episode, go watch the show, come back and listen to this episode. Because there are going to be lots of spoilers. With that being said, Rob, first impressions of the show. Like, I'm talking like the first handful of episodes.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. For some reason, when I watched the first two episodes, or maybe it was just the first one, you asked me to watch. I was watching something else at the time, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. But it didn't immediately suck me in where I was like, I have to watch this and nothing else. But when I went back after like 2 or 3 episodes, I was like, yes, I have to watch this and nothing else. So but, I mean, it was really interesting from the start. But it took a couple episodes where I was like, yes, I'm invested in this. I need to see what happens.
And see, with me, I started watching Blind Spot because of one of the actresses, Ashley Johnson. She plays Patterson in the show, and she's part of the Critical Role cast, which I'm a huge fan of. And so I started, and like they had mentioned, and they dropped little Blind Spot jokes here and there all throughout Critical Role. Mainly during the first arc or the first season of it, because every time she was off in New York filming, she wasn't able to be on the show on Critical Role, that week. So that you'd go weeks and weeks without her being there, and then she'd pop back in for a couple weeks, and then she'd go and whatnot. But then as soon as I watched the first episode, I got sucked right in. The main character, the girl who plays Jane, I should probably pull up the thing so I can say their actual names. Jamie Alexander, who plays Jane Doe, or Remy, or Alice. It all depends on where you are in the show. She also played in the first Thor movie. I believe she was Freya in the first Thor movie. So that was cool. Like I'm a huge comic book nerd, so it was cool to see another familiar face in a show. And then just the concept of it, like, because the show opens up with her in Times Square in a duffel bag, naked, with amnesia, covered in tattoos. And she, like, they clear out Times Square, she comes out of the bag, and then the New York branch of the FBI brings her in because she has a big tattoo on her back saying Kurt Weller FBI, which is one of the head of the FBI's special task forces or something like that, at the New York office. And Kurt doesn't know her from the beginning. He doesn't know who this woman is.
Yep.
And Kurt Weller's played by Sullivan Stapleton. And then the whole premise is like, as they're trying to help this Jane Doe, which is why they call her Jane Doe, because she doesn't know who she is. As they're trying to help her, they're trying to figure out what happened to her, and then they scan her body for these tattoos, and then they start realizing that these tattoos are puzzles. And then the interesting part that got me was the fact that, and I still don't know how to explain this, but these are tattoos that are puzzles that when you crack them, they help stop crimes.
Yeah.
Like they are nudges in a direction to point out like corruption and like all sorts of bad people. Like they point them in the direction of very bad people.
Yeah, it was all mostly like the premise of them was to expose corruption in the government or like bad actors that are in power, like to expose the corruption of people in power, basically.
Now, what I didn't understand is there were some of those that were like time sensitive, like, oh, you need to get to this because they're going to set off a bomb. It's like, how would they have known when they tattooed her that very day is when they will set off that bomb? Like, they might have had intel that that's what they were working towards, but I don't understand how they knew. Like, I don't like a lot of the tattoos. They just seemed to be really like at the finish line, last second saves, I guess.
Yeah, and then like in the second one, they strove to show that more, like the why.
Yeah,
because further seasons, when spoilers, blah blah blah. Because they had Roman like specifically saying, "Hey, this tattoo needs to be done now before this happens."
Right, like, and they even had Oscar. They had Oscar do that in season 1. They said, "Hey, I have a time sensitive."
Yeah, but it was only like halfway through. That's why I think people were like, "How are these like? Is this some kind of like seeing the future kind of thing?"
Right.
But so they kind of threw that in to be like, "No, they don't. This is just how they know this. So if you hadn't cracked it in time, they would have sent you a clue or something." Blah, blah.
Right. So essentially, this then after this kind of becomes like a weekly crime series where it's like each week is a new case that they solve and this, that, and the other thing. They end up giving Jane essentially like a consulting job with the FBI, with the special task force, because she's covered in these tattoos, and they want to help her. So they put her in protective custody. They give her kind of a consulting thing, and then eventually, like they let her on like they let her out in the field with them to try to jog her brain in certain things. That's where you find out she knows like kung fu and speaks Mandarin and shit. But she doesn't realize that she knows how to do that. And then I guess eventually, now you've watched it more recently than me. Maybe I missed this. She eventually just becomes a full-fledged FBI agent. Did she actually take the test or whatever is involved, or did they just say, "Oh, well, you seem to handle yourself pretty well. Here's a gun and a badge"?
I still think technically she was a consultant, but they let her carry the gun around. I don't think she was an actual agent, because I don't think they ever were like, "Oh, Special Agent Doe" or whatever, or did they?
I thought by the end they did. Because like, I know by the end, she was given, like twice during the series, she was given an out. She was like, "Hey, no one's forcing you to do this. No one's forcing you to be here. We got this under control. If you don't want to be here, you can go off and, live a normal ass life." But she kept just staying with the group, because she trusted these were really the only friends she had that she knew of. Speaking of group, again, it's headed by Kurt Weller, played by Sullivan Stapleton. Then there's Jamie Alexander. Then there's Edgar Reed, played by Rob Brown. Then there's Natasha, or just Tasha Zapata, played by Audrey Esparza. Then there's Patterson, played by Ashley Johnson. Early in the season, there's Robert Borden, who is like the no, like a psychiatrist, I guess, or a therapist. He's one or the other. I don't remember. I guess he's a psychiatrist. He's played by Ukweli Roach. I'm probably going to butcher these names.
You already are, I'm sure.
And then the assistant, at least in season 1, the assistant director in charge of the FBI's New York field office was Bethany Mayfair, played by Marianne Jean-Baptiste.
And then the full-on director guy.
Yeah. And then, like, other recurring characters, like, well, we already mentioned to kind of Roman. Roman Briggs is Jane Doe's brother, like, natural brother. We find out that these are not their names, obviously. So, like I said at the beginning, Jane Doe is actually Remy Briggs, but that's also her adoptive name. Same with Roman. And her real name is Alice Kruger.
And his real name is Kruger.
What was his first name?
Isaac.
Yeah. Oh no, Ian.
Oh, Ian. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ian.
So Roman is played by Luke Mitchell. Shepard, who is their adoptive mother, who is like the antagonist of the series for quite a while, is played by Michelle Hurd. One of my favorite characters is Rich.com, whose real name is Gord Enver. He's played by Ennis Esmer. Jesus. And I'm not even going to try that one. But that's Madeline Burke. You don't find her until like season 5 or 4.
What about Boston?
Reoccurring character. That'd be reoccurring characters.
I thought that's what you were.
Well, the ones that I just listed are technically the main cast, because Rich.com becomes part of the team.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Where is Boston? I don't see Boston. Oscar. Allison Knight. Boston Arliss Crabbe is played by Josh Dean. He's brought in. He's a love interest / friend of Rich.com's. Also a partner in crime. He is an art restorer and expert forger. And when we first see him, so they're on a case that they have to break in and steal some paintings that are like infamous. And Rich and Boston devise a plan where like they come in, he comes in and verifies them, or he has to like fix one of them. And
it got shot.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be scanning the paints to match it correctly.
Yeah.
And then the scanning machine was actually stealing the real paintings and printing out fake ones.
Yeah. And then by the end of the episode, they're on a rooftop, and Boston has the paintings because he scanned them and then, got out of the FBI with the real ones. And then Rich is on like some rooftop watching Jane fight some dude. And then Jane goes to approach Rich, and just Rich is in like a tuxedo. He just like dives off the skyscraper after like some emotional speech that sounded like it was from another movie, and then he like parachutes down and lands right at where Boston's parked, and then they drive off. That's their biggest thing, is like, so these two are thieves or criminals, and they're constantly getting in trouble, but then like they're really good at getting out of trouble.
Yeah,
Um,
and I like because that first episode. Well, it wasn't the first episode with Rich because the first one is the one where they find him and arrest him. That was the second episode with him in it. And I like how when they're talking about whatever, and they're like, Mayfair's like, no, this is all my fault. I was the one that brought in Boston. And they're like, were you though? And then they like show back where Rich is just making like weird noises when she's like, we can't find an art restorer that could do this in that short amount of time. And he's like, huh. And then she's like, what, do you know someone? You do, blah, blah, blah. Who is it?
yeah, I gotta say, Rich is probably one of my favorite characters. It's probably tied between Rich and Patterson are my two favorite. Like, I love them as a duo, especially when they're working together later on.
Yeah. I would say that Rich Patterson and Roman are my three favorites.
Yeah.
I wish Roman
I really enjoyed Roman's character. I would have really loved, like, I like the arc that it went, but I would have really loved to see Roman's character turn good.
I mean, I still argue that in the third season, still exposing all the corruption. The only time he turned was when he was like, oh, I'm choosing love over... Mostly because Jane said she would never be a family with him, and he's like, well, then I'm going to create my own family. And then he turns back around and does the right thing and ends up dying.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. His whole thing, and he was going after someone who's very corrupt and seemingly untouchable. And, like, that was his master plan, was to take that guy down because he was the one who owned the foster home / camp that him and Jane grew up in.
Yeah.
And were trained to essentially be killers and shit. So, like, he had his own agenda, which technically was a good one.
Yeah.
I really wish that his relationship with Jane, they could have mended it. I would have really preferred that.
Yeah, same.
So.
The only thing that he did that I did not agree with is he killed that guy to steal his identity.
Oh, no, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. And that guy had a lot of money.
Yeah, but he was the nice guy.
Yeah, nice guys finish last.
Well, they're here to hear, folks. It's true. Nice guys finish last. Be a dick.
Yeah, I mean, that's if I went back and looked back at my life, that's what my life has taught me so far. Seems like the assholes always seem to get ahead. At least they get to skate ahead a little bit faster. And with less effort, I'll say that. So there are 5 seasons of this. Man, we're not going to go through all of them, but let's see. First season, the antagonist was Shepard and Sandstorm. We find out that Jane was part of a quote-unquote terrorist organization.
Season 2 is also Shepard.
Okay. So seasons 1 and 2 is Shepard. But we find out Jane's part of of a terrorist organization that they dubbed Sandstorm. Or that the NSA dubbed Sandstorm.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was actually her idea. So there's a drug called Zip.
I would argue that the season 1 villain was actually
Borden.
What's his Borden? Yeah.
Oh,
no, not Borden. Borden's the one that becomes a good guy, right? His boss, Borden's boss.
Well, Borden's boss is Shepard. Borden's the psychiatrist.
Oh no, not Borden. The CIA guy. The one that didn't want them to find out about Sunset, or where the hell it was called.
Yeah. Shit. Tom Carter?
Maybe.
He was the CIA director guy who died.
Yeah, the one that Oscar killed.
Yeah. Operation Daylight.
Operation Daylight, yeah. That's what I would argue that him in Operation Daylight, trying to cover up Operation Daylight, was really the season 1 finale, because he dies and then Oscar shows up, and that's how season 2 starts. And then it's more
focusing
on Sandstorm and Shepard in season 2.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. I'll give you that. I also didn't like. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, we're gonna get off the rails here for a moment, because again, like we'll give you kind of a brief rundown of the seasons here, like whatnot. But when you first got introduced to Weiss, what did you think of him?
Which one's Weiss? Is that that's the lower director of the CIA?
No, Weiss was the fucking. At first, he was like a lawyer, and he came in and he was investigating the team constantly. And
Oh, White.
White
I
is
thought
it?
you were.
Is
It's
it
Whites.
Whites? Oh, I always call.
Yeah.
I thought it was just Weiss.
No, it's Whites.
Okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
guy.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Matthew
I mean,
Weitz. Yeah, Weitz.
I hated him, but the last season he was pretty like funny and stuff, and he died for them in the end. So.
No, see, it was a roller coaster for me. So I hated him.
Mhm.
Then I continued to hate him. Then I continued to hate him. And then that was pretty much the up of the roller coaster. And then I continued to hate him. And then at the last season, I liked him. I hated him. I liked him. I hated him. I liked him and hated him at the same time. And then I liked to hate him. And then I ended up liking him when he died.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this guy's a dick. Like, he's constantly, like, just looking out for himself, running out. And then, like, when he was working with Reed, I was like, he's going to fuck over Reed somehow. And then, like, he fired Reed in front of that CIA guy, the CIA girl.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what a dick. You fucking asshole. Then he
Especially
shows up
since
at
he
the
just
apartment.
gave that. Yeah, he gave that speech about how they all had to work together and they were a team and blah blah. And he's like, "You're fired."
Yeah. And then he shows up at the apartment. He's like, I had to fire you on paper, blah, blah, blah. It's just logistics, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how are you going to fuck over somebody now? Oh, my God. I hated that guy so much. I hated him more than I liked him, so I feel like I just don't like him as a character. Like, his sacrifice at the end kind of redeemed him, but kind of didn't. Now...
But the whole time, what was her name? Amara? Was it Amara?
Oh yeah, the girl. Shit. I don't remember.
But because the last season, him and her were mostly working together. Like almost all their interactions are hilarious. Like I laughed every time, which is just like, God, you fucking suck. And he's just like, wait, but what? Wait, no.
I can't find her. But I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
The one that Patterson reached out to with like the cup of coffee and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, were there any other characters that you can think of that were like Whites to you? Like, where it was kind of like a, God, you fucking hate them, then you, all right, they're not so bad, then no, fuck this person.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but the CIA guy that I thought you were talking about at first. The one who works with Zapata a lot.
Oh, Keaton, yeah.
Keaton, yeah.
Jake Keaton. Yeah, I started off hating him, and then it didn't take me very long, and I was just like, I seemed to just not like the snake in the hole, like snake in the grass type people. Yeah. And Keaton very much was one of those. And then I was just like, and then he was on the level, and I was like, okay, he's a cool character. I like him. I like the theory behind him and the thought behind the character. And then at the end in like season 5, when he turned on Zapata, I was like, you fucking cunt. I hate you. I hate everything about you now. Because they could have just easily just taken out the 2 bodyguards when they busted in, and then just taken in the fucking whatever her name is.
Yeah, the whole time I'm thinking of that. I'm like, freaking Whites could have just pulled out his gun and shot her at any time. It's like, yeah, then you'd have to cover up a murder, but still, the whole thing would be done with. The thing is,
he was already covering up a murder.
Yeah.
Because he bombed that fucking just a regular civilian to cover something up. Yeah, dude, 100%. They could have just walked in, fucking after been done with the whole thing. But like, no, their theory is, if we just, it's like the whole Hydra theory. If we get rid of her, someone else worse is just going to step in. It's like, then just deal with them. Just, but this woman is literally making everybody's lives a living hell.
And then, who else? Oh, Nas. I hated Nas at first, especially since she was spying in like their private meetings with the doctor.
Yeah.
And then
did she ever say why she was doing that? Or was that just to make us think that she had an ulterior motive?
It was that, but she had said to God, what the hell's his name? The main guy. Why can't I?
Kurt.
Yeah, Kurt. She said to Kurt that it was that she had to keep an eye on Jane. That she only listened to Jane's recordings because she needed to make sure that she was staying, like, not slipping back into working with. But yeah.
Here's a twist, folks. The fact that Jane, who was a former terrorist, forgot she was a terrorist, worked with the FBI, got the bug of helping people, became a good guy, and then fell in love with Kurt.
Yeah. And then the Zip made her lose her memories, and she only remembered being Remy, and she tried to fuck them all over.
Yeah.
Like, it was a big roller coaster with all of that, too.
Oh, man. I did not think that Zip thing was going to have the effect that it did later in the seasons. I was just like, oh, cool, amnesia. They're just pumping themselves full of these drugs. I did not even consider the fact that these drugs probably are taking a massive toll on their bodies.
Yeah.
Then we find out that that's pretty much what Roman was dying of, too.
Yeah.
Now, he was only dying of it because Jane zipped him, correct?
Yeah. That's what I don't understand is why he seemed to have so much worse symptoms when she was zipped like several years ago, but his symptoms were worse than hers, even though it had only been like a couple months. So that's one of the things I was like, I don't understand.
Body chemistry, man. Things affect people in different ways.
I guess, but they're siblings. It should have affected them. Whatever.
Maybe she pumped him with a higher dose?
Maybe.
Figuring, he's a bigger guy, it's going to take more to do this, even though you're affecting a brain, you're not affecting muscles. But
then again, his memory also came back faster than hers did.
That's also true. Yeah, I don't know. Like, that whole thing kind of, now that you're saying it, kind of strange. Kind of thrown up there now. What was I going to say? I forgot. I thought, at first I was like, oh man, he's on top of the game. He already knows about this zip poisoning stuff because I figured, okay, so he's showing these symptoms. He knows he's poisoned and he already has all this research on finding a cure for it. He moves fast. And then it dawned on me, and then they said it in the show that he had all the research for the cure for it because when Remy zipped herself, he knew that he was going to need a cure for her. So,
yeah,
man, the thing is he was so close. I don't know.
Yeah, he was working with the mom from Home Improvement. Well, she had actually gotten the cure.
She had finished, she had finished the cure. She was just waiting
for more for her, for Remy, because she only had enough for one dose or whatever.
Yep. I loved the adventure. I loved the adventure that Rich and Patterson went on in like wherever the fuck they went, New Zealand or something.
Oh yeah, to find the book of magic or whatever.
The book of secrets.
Book of cures. Secrets, yeah, that's what it was.
Oh man, that was like one of my favorite episodes.
That was like an Indiana Jones movie.
I know, I loved it. Oh shit, man, it's a good show. I really enjoyed the show. So now let's talk about the ending real quick.
Wait, we forgot to talk about Patterson's dad being Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Oh yeah, best fucking cameo ever. Patterson's dad, Bill Nye the Science Guy. And
and it's not just Bill Nye pretending to be her dad. Like, her dad is Bill Nye.
Yeah.
Like, he plays himself in the show.
Yeah. Let me see. Hold on. Because I want to give you a little pop quiz on something real quick. Blah, blah, blah. No, I don't care about any of this. Here we go. Okay, pop quiz now.
Okay.
Because I think they only referenced it once in the entire show. Do you know Patterson's first name?
Crap. Yeah, it's Bill. William.
William, yep.
Yeah. I was like, I have to think. I know it's a guy's name.
Yeah,
then I remembered why.
She took her. They gave her mom's last name
And her dad's first
and her
name.
dad's first name. Yeah,
I like because they joke about it through the whole thing because they're like, oh, blah blah blah. The people are trying to figure it out, and then when she makes the fake IDs, they're like, you used your real first name. She snatches it back. Never mind what I used.
Yeah. Now I will say, okay, it's in my opinion. I think given their job description and their job specialties, okay, so like their skill sets, I'll say. Mm-hmm. I think Patterson had it probably one of the worst throughout the entire series.
The worst what?
Like just she had it the roughest as far as her skill sets and like the situations that she was found in. Mm-hmm. So like her first boyfriend dies, and then her second boyfriend becomes a psychopath psychiatrist.
I mean, he always was. He was just hiding it.
Yeah, but then he ends up redeeming himself, kind of. I mean, he helps Jane. He by the time we see him again, he literally tells Jane, "My job has always been and always will be to make sure of your safety." You know, essentially to help her.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, he's in chains at the time, so it's not like he had a choice.
Yeah, but I mean, he also I feel like he actually did care about Patterson. But yeah, so first boyfriend dead, second boyfriend presumed dead for a while, found out not dead, and that was a whole big thing. Next, she gets captured by the guy in like the antiques place, and then brought up to the cabin and like runs out in the fucking wintry forest barefoot. It's like, God, Patterson, just stay in the office. Like, you should not be in the field. But like, she is trained for field duty, but I don't know. I just always felt so bad for her.
Yeah, and then she's out with that guy, and it's a terrible date, and then there's a bomb or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. Okay, so now
and then she's the one that gets framed for whatever when Rich has to help her escape from the building. I don't remember what that one was, but it was just Patterson. So I remember they were like, "Where is she?"
Oh yeah, then she got Rich's disguise as the old man janitor.
Yeah.
I love the fact that like whenever it was like it came time to like get out of anywhere or get to anywhere in the FBI field office, Rich knew how to do it, and they all just like look at him like a what? But then they don't question it. Cause like he's in one cell and then all of a sudden he's coming out through a vent and he's somewhere else. He's like, what? All right, so the end. Let's talk about the series finale here. Me and you talked about it a little bit yesterday. So it ends. Jane has zip poisoning again, and it's not cured fully. And her symptoms are getting worse, and she knows she's dying. And they end up like stopping a bomb in Times Square again in a trash can. That was going to be like an aerosolized zip bomb to try to like pretty much wipe the memories of everyone in New York.
Yeah, and that's because of the zip poisoning, you get hallucinations. So everybody she's ever met that ever helped her is like showing her the way to the bomb.
Yeah. Her and Kurt do something that they do numerous times throughout the series. They defuse the bomb together at the same time. Then they go to show essentially her. I think there was a monologue maybe, but it essentially shows her and Kurt in like a house in Colorado, right? Because that's what they always talked about.
Well, no, the next scene is them being fired from the FBI or whatever, and gathering their boxes.
Being let go. Yeah, then they leave the FBI because they were told that they could stay on just to complete this one last thing, see the one last thing through. So they leave, and then it shows everybody at like either a Christmas or a Thanksgiving feast or something. People are dressed up, and they're all at Kurt and Jane's house. We find out that they adopted a bunch of kids too.
Yeah. And Jane's other daughter and Weller's other daughter are both there, which we didn't go into at all, but they both have children with other people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then, you know, Kurt or Patterson's there, Rich is there, Boston's there, Tasha's there, Allie.
Allison.
Yeah.
They're
pretty much everybody but Reed, because Reed died.
We didn't say that either, but Reed dies
in
the last season. Actually, before the last season, he dies in like season 5.
I will say this though, they fucking presumably killed off Patterson, and I was heartbroken.
I was so disinterested in the next episode until she appeared. I was like, oh my god!
And then she came back.
I can watch this again. I was like, I don't know that I'm going to bother finishing this.
It was bad. Anyway, it shows all them feasting and whatnot, and then it just kind of zooms in on Jane, and she's just kind of like zoning out, but like, you know, surrounded by all of her loved ones. And then it shows her.
Yeah, Kurt says something about we did it again or whatever, isn't it amazing, blah, blah, blah. That all these people are here because, like, nothing, like, one wrong thing and they all could have come crashing down. Yeah. Something like that. So then she starts thinking. So then it, like, zooms back to that part where they disarmed the bomb in Times Square.
Yeah. And then she essentially collapses after that. And if I remember correctly, like Tasha and somebody else, like they're holding Kurt back or whatever while like paramedics arrive or some shit. But then they essentially they show someone zipping up a body bag that had Jane in it, and it's in Times Square, and there's no one around, which is just kind of like the opening where she's in the bag in Times Square with no one around and she comes out. This is her going into a body bag, essentially. This is the life and death of Jane Doe, I feel. Now you feel like this is up to interpretation.
Yes, because after they zip up the bag, it goes back to Jane again at the party. So I think you're left to decide which ending is the true ending, because there are things that seem like both could be the true ending, because when in this last episode, when she's running through the church to try to find the Ivy, the bad lady, she sees a bunch of people getting married, and the doctor is there, the one we were talking about who was supposed to be helping her. He appears and he says, like, this is your mind giving you happy endings because you're dying. So the dinner could have been her one last happy ending her brain was giving her as she died, which is what you're supposed to think. And then putting, like he said, Webby said, the bag was like Matilda. The bag was like the artistic ending because she came out of the bag in the beginning. At the end, she goes into the bag. But in that ending, they just leave the bag in the middle of the street with no one around it at all. So it's like, why would anyone do that?
That's the art part of it. You're not supposed to think about that.
Okay, but it still happened. So you could say that that's not the real ending, that that's just what she was thinking could have happened. So it's either, I think it's open to interpretation which ending is real. And then, like I said, because after they show that, they go back to the dinner party. And she's kind of just like, she kind of like comes out of, like snaps out of it and just smiles again. So, I don't know. I think you can pick which ending you want, really. That's what they were giving you. Is it the artistic ending where she goes back in the bag?
You know what? I'm gonna write the writers of Blind Spot. I'm gonna get a finalized answer, and I hope you're right because I'd like to think that the real ending is her surrounded by all of her loved ones living in a house in Colorado somewhere. I don't know. Like I told you before, I didn't thinking that the body bag ending is the ending. I didn't like it because I didn't want Jane to die, but I liked it from an artistic standpoint. But yeah, I mean, if it's up for interpretation or if it's up for, interpretation is the right word. Then I mean, I guess I would choose to believe that the party one is the real ending. And I'm assuming that's what you would believe.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm fixing my pant leg. Well, yeah. So I mean, that's the ending, folks. That's Blind Spot. I mean, we didn't cover a lot. There's a lot to the show. It's a roller coaster of a show. I'll say that as far as I'm concerned.
I will give you the answer that the creator gave. I just looked it up because it was the creator of Blind Spot gives an answer. Says, what should we make of the moment where we see what could have happened if Jane hadn't survived? Are we supposed to wonder which one is the real ending, or is it just her playing out the scenario in her head? Jiro, we're not going to comment on that. What's interesting about it is that it's kind of a Rorschach test for whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, and whether you want a happy ending or a sad ending. Some people vehemently are like, oh, she just imagined another possible scenario, and then went back to the party. And some people are like, oh my god, she died and this whole dinner doesn't even exist. I think both are valid. The show is this episode to people just in the making of it, and it was so incredible to watch the 50-50 split happen, and people are like, what? No, that's crazy. Why would you think that? And on both sides, which is by design. We wanted it to be satisfying no matter what, if it makes sense, so that you could choose your perfect ending. But we believe it was really want to dig down and look for what our authorial intent, and that if you really want to dig down and look to what our authorial intent was, that there are markers throughout the text that clearly state what we think it is.
Okay. So they left it vague on purpose, like you said, but they did have an actual intent of what. Yeah, but
he won't admit what it was.
Well, they just said something about markers or something, didn't they? Text markers or something. Is it in that article that you're reading? Is that where the answer is?
No, it's in the show apparently.
Okay, so me thinking that the body bag is the ending makes me a pessimist?
I guess so.
I mean...
me thinking the opposite is an optimist. So, yeah.
So I guess you're the optimist here.
I guess so. Also, the next question was, so are Richard and Patterson really off somewhere in search of the Newtonian device now? And can we please get that as a spin-off? And he said, just tell me where and when, and I'll do it. I would absolutely love to drop everything and do a treasure hunting show with Ashley and Ennis. Literally, tell me where and I'll start.
Yes, so, I want that. I want that to happen.
Me too.
All right. With that being said, Rob, how did you enjoy the show on a scale from 1 to 10?
I would say 10. It was really enjoyable.
Well, I'm glad that I gave you a recommendation that you thoroughly enjoyed. I think I'm going to give it a 10. I feel like they ended it. I don't know. It seems like they ended it a little too soon, but at the same time, it seems like it was the perfect time to end it. So yeah, I have no real gripes about that. If there's anything that you could change, what would you change? Other than Roman dying.
Why is there other that?
Because
That would have been my answer, you jerk.
other than Reed dying.
Will you stop taking away all the dying ones?
No, just those two.
The only other thing then would be what's her face dying
Who?
in the beginning.
Oh, Mayfair?
Mayfair, yeah.
Fuck her.
Also, reading the article, Mayfair was the only one that couldn't get to come back for the finale. They got everybody else from the show to come back, but Mayfair wasn't available.
Yeah.
So, I would have liked to see Crab more in the thing with
Boston, yeah.
Rich and Patterson in their puzzle solving stuff.
Yeah.
The three of them were really good together.
All right. Well, that was Blind Spot. I ain't got nothing left to say on that.
Wait. Was there anything you would have changed?
Oh, let's see. Probably Roman dying.
Other than other than the things that you took away from me.
Man. I mean, other than deaths in general, because I didn't really want Keaton to die either. I kind of liked him as a character.
Yeah.
I think they should have killed Whites sooner.
Before
season 2 or whenever he was introduced. Fucking snake in the grass. I hated that guy so much. But I mean, honestly,
he started off as a lawyer, and I hated all the lawyers in this show.
But I mean, in all honesty, though, that shows that the writers are good at writing these characters. Because I'm sure we were meant to hate this guy for quite a while, and just showing the how much hatred I did have for that guy as a character. Hey, props to the writers, I guess.
Mm.
You know. I don't know. I would have liked to see a little bit more of Ice Cream, I guess.
Ice Cream was great.
So, okay. So with that, we need a getting real with Rob science corner, whatever the fuck.
Yep, getting real.
I made the mistake. I am very unprofessional. I made this mistake of starting this episode without getting a drink of water.
No boy. So a question was posed to me to which I did not know the answer. So I did some research, and I learned things that I did not know. So the question was, what would it take to be able to breathe in space? So space is a vacuum. It does not have any gas in which you could breathe. In fact, if you were to hold your lungs in the vacuum of space, it would do severe damage to them. So if you're in space and you somehow think you could make it somewhere that has oxygen, you want to actually push all the air out of your lungs so that they don't get damaged. And then hopefully get somewhere before you have to take another breath. But anyway, so then I was like, well, then you would have to need an atmosphere around you and somehow. So I have learned that Earth's atmosphere is actually held in place by gravity. The Earth's gravity holds our atmosphere in place. That's why it doesn't just fly off into space and disappear into the vacuum. So you would need to generate your own gravitational field around yourself to hold oxygen in place in order for you to breathe. Basically, that is what it would take to be able to breathe in space. Or extend the Earth's atmosphere somehow, which is not a good idea because it's very precariously held in place, actually. It's very, very thin compared to the Earth itself. So let's not mess with it.
So when the mean kids in school come up to you and say, your mama's so fat she has her own orbit, be like, yeah, that means she can survive in space.
Yeah, pretty much. If you have enough gravity to hold oxygen to yourself, you would be able to breathe in space. That's the only way. Otherwise, there's no gases in space, really.
But even if you had enough gravitational pull on yourself to hold oxygen to you, first off, it would be a limited supply of oxygen, I'm feeling, in space. Because you don't have anything producing oxygen then.
Yeah, you would only have a short time unless you created your own ecosystem with plants to renew oxygen as you breathe out carbon dioxide.
And if you had that type of gravitational pull to be able to have something like that, how would that affect you on Earth?
I mean, you wouldn't be able to. I mean, it would both cause lots of problems on Earth for you to have that kind of gravity around you.
Wouldn't you have your mass would have to be so dense that you literally wouldn't be able to walk, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, your mass would have to be your mass would be enough to affect Earth itself.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. So you could cause shifts in our rotation and stuff, which would not.
With this question that was posed to you, so space is a vacuum, so it's void of all gases.
Yes, except for around other things that there's gases around other things with gravity that have been pulled to them.
Right.
But because of the gravitational forces, it sucked all the gases out of the space in between, so that's why it's a vacuum.
Okay. Now, is there any way, not necessarily a human, but would it be possible to acquire some... No, I don't know how to word this. I guess the only way that you would be able to survive in space without dying is if you just no longer needed to breathe. If you were somehow gifted the superpower of never needing to breathe again. If you were a vampire, say. Okay, so vampires, they don't have to breathe.
Yeah.
You could technically survive in space?
Yes. Depending on how far away from a heat source you got, because then you would just turn into a solid block of ice. But as long as you were warm enough, then you could survive in space. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just that pesky breathing thing. All right. Well, that was Science Corner with Rob, and that was our episode on Blind Spot. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have not seen Blind Spot, go watch it. It's a great show. Cheer on everybody. And if you have seen Blind Spot, send us comments somewhere. Tell us what you think of the show. What did you like? What didn't you like? Who were your favorite characters? And which characters did you hate the most? Whites. Fucking whites.
We love Rich and Patterson, and Kathy is also there.
And Kathy is also there. That was a good episode. All right. Well, with that being said, Rob, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Confessor_X or on Twitch at twitch.tv/ConfessorX.
And as always, everybody, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Jax Forest Walker, all one word, and on Twitch at DM Webby, and on eBay at Looking for Devin.
Well, Devin's on eBay at the moment.
Yes, it's a Devin! I found you.
Well, Devin's on eBay.
I can log off eBay now.
You can log off eBay. You found me. You found me. I was chained up in the basement, but he found me.
Devin, where can people find you on the internet?
You guys can find me on Twitter at DMP_Pookie, and you can find me on Twitch at Mr. D3. Hopefully pretty soon. I got something in the works. Big things happening.
Big things. Big brain. Big IQ. Whatever. Big brain.
I don't know about that. Don't overpromise.
Listen.
I like a man with a big thing.
My advice to Devin, underpromise, overdeliver. There we go.
Rob likes big things.
Yes.
I mean, that could be taken in a multitude of ways, and that's the best thing about it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening, and as always, fuck Booster Gold.
Truck Booster Gold.
PG.
FBG. Bow, bow, bow. Fucking Whites. He's making the list. He's right up there with Booster Gold now. Not as bad because he kind of redeemed himself, but fucking Warriors.
Fritz, I told you gotta get out of here. No, I'm not leaving with blah blah blah.
Our SU Warriors.
What's going on here? Oh, look, I found
The
it.
only good ones.